What's up, everyone? I'm C.L. Connolly. I'm an indie author of the Affair series. Forbidden Affair is on sale now on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Family Affair is set to come out August 14th. And I have one more, Friendly Misfortunes, that is also available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Okay, today I'm going to be talking about my publishing gap because there is a large gap in my publishing. So, Forbidden Affair was published in 2012, and Friendly Misfortunes was published in 2014, and I haven't published anything since. I did, however, start writing Family Affair in 2015, so it shouldn't have taken as long to get published, but I have a story. So, I was working in the process of Forbidden Affair and Friendly Misfortunes, and I was still working at the same place when I started writing Family Affair. The only difference is I was a department manager at a retail location, whatever, and the store manager had changed. So we got a new store manager. No big deal. Nobody else is going to have a problem with that. The only issue that we had was that the location that I was in was very, very small. And that very, very small location stresses people out way too much. And so the store manager that we had was an assistant manager at another location, but he was being promoted, and he got promoted to this small location. And he wasn't exactly how you would say someone who knew how to get employees to do things for him. He ordered everybody around. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And that's kind of how that worked out. And at some point, I had finished writing Family Affair, and I was really excited to go on to the next phase of that, which is the editing phase. And at the time, I was only writing one book at a time. And that was because, I was still kind of new at it, and I was still kind of trying to get my groove into writing with a day job and, everything else. And it got to the point to where he was stressing out, which was causing all the other employees to stress out, which caused me to only work on my book when I was on vacation, which was 1 to 2 times a year. And I wasn't exactly comfortable with that. I really wanted to focus on my book, but I got this guy screaming at me constantly that I needed to do part of his job and all of my job all in one day, and it was completely impossible to do 85 things in one day. So I would do my job portion of it, and then when it came to his job portion of it, it was like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? And I'm sitting there thinking, why can't you do it yourself? But, whatever. And I eventually was just so drained from going to work during the day that by the time I got home, I literally didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit on the couch. I wanted to watch TV. I wanted to eat, and I wanted to go to bed. The end. And I got out of work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if that says anything. But literally, when I got home, I had to go for a run, or I would have hung this guy in the receiving area of the store, because I literally could not stand him. And I worked with him for over a year until I just couldn't take it anymore. And literally everybody, all the employees noticed a difference in me, and the customers noticed the tension inside the store. Every time they came in, it was a totally different energy that was inside the store, and it was really bad. But the thing was, though, is that the manager that I worked with when I first got to that store, everything was fine. He knew how to run the store. Everything was great. For some reason, this guy had no idea how to run the store, so he needed my help because of the fact that I was actually already there, so I knew how to run the store. So now I'm having to do his job in order to get the store run, but I'm also the operations manager, so I'm having to set up the store at the same time. And I just couldn't do it. So I had lost all passion for my dream that I actually wanted to be an author, and that was my biggest thing. So I eventually decided I wanted to do a transfer. So I put in for a transfer, and the only problem with putting in a transfer was the fact that in the district that I was in, they didn't need a full-time manager in any of the locations. Sucks, right? But they did have several stores that had managers that were on maternity leave all at the same time. So I bounced around from store to store to store to store to store, and I was okay with that. And that was for an entire year. For a whole year of 2016, I was bouncing around from different stores. Now, these stores were all over in this area, and I live in Texas, so the area that I lived in was huge. Most of these places from my house would take me an hour, sometimes more, to get there. So I went from several different locations, and I helped them out with little manager things. And anytime a manager was on vacation, I'd go to that location. And then another manager would be out for some reason, and I'd go to that location. And for a year, I bounced around to different stores. Now, in the 6 years that I worked for this company, I had been at, I want to say 12, I think it was 12 different locations, which is funny because I was in a different district when I first started. And when I got transferred to the small location, all of a sudden everything was redistricted. So I could not go back to the district near my house. Retail is just one of those difficult things. So anyway, so as I'm bouncing around from store to store to store, there's even a bigger stress with that, because then you're having to figure out the different running procedures or operating procedures for each store and everything else. And then you've got keys for this store and you've got keys for this store, and you have to keep them on 2 separate keychains, and you have to remember which store you're going to which day, because there were sometimes I was going to 3 different stores in 1 week. So I was helping everybody out. Plus, not only that, but sometimes they needed help in a specific area of the store, and that was the area that I had started working in when I started for the company. And they knew that I had known, or I knew that location or that area of the store. So I would get put in that area, and anytime they were having issues with any of their employees, or they didn't have somebody to cover a shift, they'd ask me to go to this store, and it was stressful. So eventually I ended up getting transferred back full-time to the small store, but the manager had changed. Because once I had left that location, because that store manager didn't know how to run that location immediately suffered for it. And he eventually could not handle it anymore, and he was eventually let go. So the manager changed. So then they put me back in that location because I knew how to run that location, and they needed me at that location. Unfortunately, the new manager at that location, which ended up being a female, unfortunately, the new manager at that location was a little bit more high-strung, and she liked to order people around. Like, I'm the manager, you have to do what I say. And it was a little frustrating because it was more of, how about if you just let us do our jobs? Because there was me and another manager at that location who had been working for the company for the exact same amount of years. And she started 3 years after we did. So we kind of knew what was going on, and we knew how things worked and everything. And we were okay. We knew how to do our jobs. But for some reason, she kept telling us we didn't have any idea what we were doing, and she wanted us to do it her way. Problem is, though, is that her way was not the company policy. And we had a hard time following her instructions because we'd go right back to the way that we were trained with the company policy. And then she'd get upset, even though it was done. And she would constantly give us extra work to do because she wanted to sit in the office and do conference calls and emails and sit on her phone. But literally, she was hardly ever out on the floor. She was hardly ever interacting with the customers. She never wanted to have any part of that. So if the employees had an issue and they needed a manager, one of the department managers had to go over and talk to the customer. And then when the customer didn't like what we had to say, they wanted to talk to the store manager. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. So she would just tell us to take care of it. So we would have to explain to the customer, she's in the office, she's busy, she can't come out, and ask if there was something we could do. So now it's even a whole nother stress on top of that, because now she doesn't want to do her job either. So then it just got to the point to where, you know what, I'm just going to work here until the manager changes again. I'm just going to leave it alone because the district manager had changed again. And I was like, I am so tired of this company not knowing whether, what district manager they want to have where, and what store manager they want to have where, and exactly how all of this works. And I just felt like the whole company was just going under. But it was a paycheck. At some point, I had a back injury. Now I'm out of work because I'm considered as a liability. And my back injury could not be considered as a work-related injury due to the fact that technically it had been, my back has always had issues and stuff like that. We kind of knew that something was going on, but it wasn't so bad. But I was the operations manager, so I had to help with freight, and the trucks would get delivered and I'd have to help put it away in the store and, certain things like that. And to not give away anything of what, store I was, or, company I was working for. I'm not going to tell you what kind of freight it was, but it was somewhat heavy. So of course, picking up boxes and things like that is not exactly the best thing to do when, your back already hurts as it is. You're on your feet 8 hours a day, sometimes more. And then I go home and I run so I don't murder somebody, because customers are awesome. Whoever came up with the saying that the customer is always right, you're an asshole. Because the customer is not always right, and you don't know how to do my job, so shut up and stop telling me. Anyway, so this manager was about the same as the other guy, but the other guy had worked for the company longer than she had. And she would constantly give me 100 other things to do on top of my already, full list. And I had a planner, notebook, all kinds of stuff that went with me everywhere that was specific for work. I would have to answer phone calls when I was not there. It's a retail store. Why am I having to answer phone calls because you don't know how to work the equipment? You're a store manager. You should know how to work the equipment. But you know what? Sometimes it doesn't work that way. My husband and I would be out. I'd have to answer the phone, and I'd spend 20 to 45 minutes on the phone trying to explain how to use a specific equipment in the store. Eventually, it got to the point to where I was considered as a liability due to my back injury, and I could no longer work. Going to the doctor and everything, I had an MRI, I went to a spine doctor, and they had figured out that I not only had slight scoliosis, which we already knew, I also have spinal stenosis, which is not a good idea. Plus, I've got a whole other slew of medical issues with other things that are causing a lot of pressure in my spine and my tailbone, and that's beside the point. So I became a liability. I started doing physical therapy, thought maybe I could go back to work. But since I was out of work at this point in time, I figured, why not start writing again? So I start editing Family Affair. Okay, cool. At this point, it is now 2017. I've been out of work for 2 years. Okay. Wasn't actually realizing that till just now. Okay. So, this was July, August of 2017. So right about now. And so July, August of 2017, I was kicked out of work, told that I could not work anymore, did physical therapy, and I still had restrictions after physical therapy. Because, of course, physical therapist said that it could be 18 to 24 months before I could go back to doing what I was doing before, because I'm having to sit for long periods of time right now because I can barely move. My back was so bad, I literally could barely move. I spent most of my days on the couch in front of the TV, sometimes with my book, because I couldn't get up to go change out, the DVD disc, because we don't have TV service, so it's movies or, TV shows on DVD, but that's about it. So it's not like I'm changing the channel with the remote. And on the bad days, I'd sit there with my manuscripts and I'd edit, sit there with my laptop and I'd edit, and that's about all I would do. And that was through 2017, but with doctor's appointments and physical therapy and everything else, and sometimes I was in so much pain I just wanted to sleep all day. So that hadn't been done. Well, by the time I got to 2018, it was finally time to go to the beta readers. Thank goodness. So I went to the beta readers, and then my husband and I were selling our house so that we could move, because without my income, we couldn't, well, I can't really say we couldn't afford the house, because that wasn't exactly true, but we wanted to move out into the middle of nowhere. So in case I could not go back to work, we'd be in the middle of nowhere, and it wouldn't matter because we didn't have that huge mortgage to deal with. So we found some property literally in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but we live in an RV right now. So this is not an actual house. I live in an RV. How much fun is that? I'm a perma-camper. Okay, that's done. So 2018 was a huge ordeal with selling the house, because we had to sell it twice, because thank you, banks, for not knowing how to do your job. We had one couple who put an offer on the house. It was all good. And then the day before we were supposed to sign the closing papers, their bank contacts them and says, oh, wait, sorry, we're not going to fund you. We're now homeless. And I felt bad. I literally just wanted to give them the house at that point. I was like, that's just wrong. So we had to put the house back on the market. We no longer lived in that house. And I was having to go over there once a week to make sure that everything was okay in that house. And as I was going over there and checking on it and everything, it didn't take long. It was only like 2 weeks before it sold again, but then we still had to wait another 30 days before we could sign the closing papers for the new couple, which, thank goodness, they got the house and everything was fine. And I'm sorry I play with my hair so much, just because it's so long. Anyway, so I was going over there checking on the house once a week. I mean, we had the neighbors on one side of us that we were okay with, but then there was the neighbor on the other side of us that would not surprise me if she wasn't breaking out my windows, because she was just rude. And, that's one reason why we wanted to get out of that neighborhood. But the other reason was because the neighborhood all of a sudden turned into, ghetto-geddon. Everybody's tires were getting stolen, the tailgates were getting stolen, people's cars were being broken into. It was to the point where we were sleeping in our living room because it was right by our front door, and if the dogs barked, we knew somebody was on our driveway. So we just didn't feel safe in the house anymore, which was really weird, because when we first moved in 10 years, in 2008 when we moved in, it was the safe area. So we were okay with that, but eventually the ghetto made its way that way, and we were no longer safe anymore. And it was just horrible. And now that area is just, people are being carjacked at the light in front of the Walmart over there. Anyway, so now we live in a small town, a very, very small town, literally population 650. And I love it. Since, I'm still on restrictions, yay me. Still on restrictions now in 2019. So from 2017 to 2019, I still have restrictions. I am trying to get back into running. Hopefully by next year, I can go full force. Only issue is right now I'm having to slow down my pace and only go 1 mile at a time. I'm used to running half marathons, so it's not exactly the best. And I'm used to running half marathons at a 8.5 to 9 minute mile. And at this point, I'm having to do 11 to 12 minute miles one time. But that's beside the point. So because we had our house sold last year, finally got my book back from the beta readers last year as well. I was able to get that completely, finished, and I wanted to have it published in March of 2019, but I decided to go over it one more time. I thought, let me go ahead and read it one more time. I was in the process of writing Fundamental Affair, and I was almost finished with Fundamental Affair, and I was getting ready to get into Fruitful Affair, so I wanted to go through and read Family Affair one more time. As I'm reading it one more time, I'm realizing, I can edit some of these, so now I'm editing more. And then I had to get all of the props and everything that I needed for the cover photo, which it's very difficult to get fake blood when it's not Halloween from Party City, due to the fact that sometimes you get those employees that are like, yo, we don't get that until September. And then you have to go, no, it's in the back. I know this for a fact because I've done this twice now. This one here and the other one. The other one has an autopsy photo. I have those in storage because, like I said, we live in an RV. So a lot of our stuff is in storage. So I don't have not Fundamental Affair. I don't have Friendly Misfortunes here with me right now. Only because it's my single title, so I don't really promote it all that much. I don't know why, but it was like once I started writing the Affair series, after I had heard from the reader for Forbidden Affair and was like, hey, can this be a series? And I started writing the Affair series, it's almost as if Friendly Misfortunes kind of just got pushed to the side, and I haven't really been promoting it much. I've been promoting Forbidden Affair, and Family Affair, but I've also had, I want to say my mother. My mother was the one who said something about the fact that Forbidden Affair was better than Friendly Misfortunes, but you have to have at least one, that you learn from. Whatever. I'm okay with that. So, Friendly Misfortunes is the one that I don't promote very often, but I do have, and I will be, I still sell it, so I'm not that worried about it. And sometimes I'll actually give people free copies of my book and stuff like that. People who have made an impact on my life is, how I see that. So, anyway, that's the publishing gap. Work, injury, selling the house. I let life stop me from doing the one thing that I love, and it was probably not the best. I should have just decided, screw this. I don't care about you. I'm going to do me, and I'm going to do what I love. But sometimes that's just how life works. Sometimes you get that stress in your life, and you just don't have the energy or emotional stamina to do what you love. And I'm telling you right now, I really wish that I would have just continued writing throughout those years that I was stagnant. And I'm very upset with myself. I can tell you, though, that I had a list of books that I wanted to write in those years. Like, I would write down ideas all the time. I have enough ideas right now to last me until 2030. That's how many book ideas I managed to come up with in the time that I actually wasn't writing. And it's probably not a great idea just to have a list of stuff that you want to write and then not write it. And I'm telling you now, write whenever you can. If this is your passion, if this is what you want to do, do it. Don't stop yourself because somebody else is having a hard life. Do what you want and then take that job and shove it. It'll happen. It'll happen for everybody. Once you get to that point and you're, marketing your books and you're getting them out there to readers and your readers are loving it and you have a fan base, it'll get to that point to where you won't have to have your day job anymore and you can do what you love. And that's the best way to go about it. That's all I got for you today. Go ahead and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Not very active on Twitter. I'm the most active on Instagram, and every so often I'll post something on Facebook. But other than that, it is still CL Connolly on all social medias. And make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so that you know every time I post. Right now it's on Mondays. Next year, I'm going to be attempting to post twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, except on the weeks that I do challenges. And then that's going to be a daily video for the challenges. And then when I do the daily video for the challenges that Friday, it will be a live video. So you can ask me questions and we can kind of, understand what you're struggling with and anything else. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to do live writing sprints, but at this point in time, we're just going to do live Q&As. Makes it a little easier on you. So hit that subscribe button so you know every time I post a video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!